Hey everyone, welcome to the Good News Podcast. And today's episode to me exemplifies why we call it the Good News Podcast, because we're going to sit down with a good friend, longtime friend of mine, Pam Gordon. And Pam's dad, Don, is one of the reasons that Brampton is the city that it is today. Talk about good news. We're going to share in great detail how that all came to be. And along the way, we're going to find out how much like her dad, Pam, really is. Guys, sit back, relax, put your feet up, get ready to enjoy a very powerful episode. Let's dive in. Welcome, everybody. So glad you could tune in for the Good News Podcast today. This is going to be quite an episode. I don't even know what the word is, more than excited to be with my good friend, Pam Gordon. We got a great history. Pam, probably a great place to start is how we actually met, because that was pretty amazing, as I
guess starting with the old God is probably, appropriate. Well, I went to Troy and Pam's wedding, and you did the service. And halfway through this, after the service was over, you came to me and you said, "How would you like to come to my church?" And I said, "Look, I can't come to your church. I'm not religious, and I'm on the other persuasion in life." And you said to me, "Okay, well, let's see. I don't care about your sexuality, and I don't care that you're not religious. I just want you to come and be my friend." It's like, geez. Now, I'm not a church person. But that did it for me. And then we, became friends very quickly, which is amazing.
I think...
You're the only one that could get me to do that.
Oh, well.
For sure. Pretty special man, Jamie.
We've been through a lot, Pam, and
Oh, God, yeah.
glad that we can take some time to reflect on that and talk about it today. And, I think about you all the time. I think about your parents all the time. And we want to share some of the amazing ways that both your parents, for sure, but your dad in particular, had such an impact on the city. But before we get into what he did and his vision, I'd love to hear a bit about who he was and how how would you describe your dad as you think about just the unique individual that he was?
Well, I guess you got to realize the size of the guy. He was like 5'5" and 128 pounds soaking wet. And everybody said I was his clone, which is very true. But he might have been really serious at work, but he was one of the most funniest people I'd ever met in my life. And to have him in my life was just an absolute treasure. It doesn't mean that we didn't have our arguments, because we were so much alike. So there was a lot of back and forth, as you can imagine. But he was genuine. He was loving. He was nuts about his family. He thought about us all the time, which was great. And it doesn't mean like he knew what to say all the time, but he had a way that very few words, and he could bring you around no matter what. But he was a good man. He was an honest man. And I don't know, have you ever seen anybody try to cook bacon and eggs on a Saturday and a Sunday, and he burns the bacon and breaks all the eggs? And I'd come in and go, "Oh, dude," right? He's like, "Get the hell out of the kitchen." And then we'd start, right? So it was funny. If it wasn't the bacon and eggs kind of thing, it was he used to wake Donnie and I up on a Saturday morning, we were much younger, with "Mama, don't let your babies grow up to be cowboys." And my dad can't sing, believe me, but it was loud. But he was that kind of guy. He could snap from work to home life and make it fun, right? So, and I got to tell you, one of the coolest things about him was I was terrified to go sailing, and he had his boat, and of course he calls it Chinguacousy, right?
Really?
Oh yeah, big Chinguacousy across the blue and white letters. And I went out with him one day because he said, "Okay, this is great." I said, "What?" "It's a storm." "Yeah, but the waves are like 8 feet high. Let's go." It's like, oh, so I went. And of course, he takes the boat and he leans it. So I'm sitting up here like this, and he goes, "Isn't this fantastic?" And I'm like, oh, dear God. But I got to tell you, after that time, anytime he wanted to go sailing, I was on that boat because he was so funny. And he'd be going by people as if he was still in the Navy, and he was just a clown.
Like for sure that would resonate with my experience of him, just full of personality, personality.
My mother said to him when I was 16, "You don't know your children." And the reason she said that is because he worked at the city of Brampton 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. Nobody could do it better than him. And true story. But she said after Christmas Day, from the 26th to the 31st, you're taking your kids skiing. I don't give where you go,
Yeah.
but you're going.
This is your mom
Saying
saying
it
this
to
to your
him.
dad. Okay.
Because here's the thing. He might have run the city, but he didn't run the house, right? And that's as simple as that. The best thing that I would watch was I just have a smirk on my face. She'd say, "Where's the check?" Because he would get an allowance. That's just funny, right?
Because she manages the finances.
Everything.
Okay.
Because he said he'd blow it. We'd have nothing if it was up to him. So no, he didn't get to have any money, right? It was just so funny. But we went skiing at that point from, I think it was 17, and my brother would be 19. And for 5 days,
Wow.
I never laughed so hard.
Yeah, yeah.
And that went on for like 12 years.
Wow.
It was incredible. So when Donnie left, Stephen would come, my cousin.
Okay.
But my God, fun?
That's cool.
Oh, we got stuck on the way to Montreal in the ditch, and he made me push the car while he steered. That's the kind of guy. You look bigger than me. You go ahead and push. Oh, I have to steer. You don't have your license yet. It's like, oh, dear God. That's the kind of guy he was. But belly laugh all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and one of the things, because by the time I met him, it was later on in life,
Yeah.
and he we're gonna get into this, the impact he's had on our city. I just can't wait to talk about that, his
Right.
vision for the city, the way he executed on that. But by the time I came along, I'd heard about him almost in a legendary kind of way,
Yeah.
and he's very full of personality from such a small physique, right? Which
Yeah.
was sort of really just interesting.
Yeah.
But was kind
Powerful
of known
guy.
as a powerful
Yeah.
figure and very, very bold, right? And
Oh,
and you
yeah.
knew when he walked into the room.
Yeah.
But a part that I got to know very quickly that I don't know if everyone knew this about him, but the deep care that he has, like really a huge heart. Because one of
Yeah, he would tell
one of
me
my
not to tell anybody. It was
right?
like that.
Yeah, because
I
he
say
had
that
this
stuff
almost
now.
a facade, right? Because
Totally.
down deep, like, and for me, and I've shared this with you many times, Pam, I was so moved by this when your mom was passing away. It was
Right.
it was getting close to the end, and I had been there, for a good part of the day and was honored to be there. We were walking through this together, and your dad
Yeah.
comes up to me and he says, "Hey, I really appreciate you being here.
Yeah.
But you got a family." And he said it in a bit of a different way because your dad. He said,
There was some flavorful words.
You need to get your what home." And I
Absolutely.
just really appreciate the deep care
Yeah.
for, it wasn't just about him, even in that situation
Right.
where it was about him and his family and his wife.
Right.
He still had this sense of otherness and caring for others, where he told me to basically get home to be with my family at this point of the day. And anyway,
He was a very caring man.
Yeah.
In fact, what he wouldn't want people to know is that the last 3 months of my mother's life, he wouldn't come downstairs. And even if he did, he'd blow it off as just tired, need a nap, but that
Okay.
was his world,
yeah,
But I knew that, and my brother knew that. Nobody else would have understood that.
That was-
Because especially even at work, he'd be like, "No, everything's fine." He's
Yeah.
the big guy, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But he was soft inside.
yeah,
He
exactly.
really was.
Yeah,
He really was.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
your dad had this incredible vision for the city, and our city
Yeah.
is different because I don't know. People may know that Chinguacousy Park is named after him, but
Correct.
it's been some time ago. Brampton's been around for a while now, and just I'm excited for people to hear how Brampton came to be, because your dad was instrumental in creating this
Yep.
beautiful city that we're so blessed to live in. And so talk a bit about the vision that he had for the city and some of the ways that some of the things we have in our city today because of your dad.
Well, I think what's interesting too is earlier we mentioned that good things come out of bad
Yeah,
experiences.
yeah.
We lived in Toronto and Scarborough till I was 5, and my dad had applied for a director's job at the city of Toronto, and he was turned down.
Mm.
And thank God for that, because then he went to school. I don't think it was a lot of school. Dad was a visionary, and he was the best at it.
Mm-hmm.
But he applied to the city of Brampton to be the director, because that was the highest you could go at that time. And he got the job, so we moved to Brampton. And that man, and I'm going to say a lot of it single-handedly, he had a vision, and his vision was leisure for everyone. Now, what's funny about this guy is he started smoking at 7, okay? He didn't do a
7.
lot of, he was mad because his friend's dad, who owned the store, caught them, so they had to quit for a year. This is what he tells me, right? I'm like, oh, dear God, Dad. Anyways, he moved us to Bramalea. We had dirt on the lawn for the longest time. City Center wasn't even built. There was 32,000 people in Brampton. And it was separated by that thing, Brampton, Bramalea, by Dixie Road, which if you were born in Bramalea like I was, we still call it Bramalea. We're in Bramalea right now, Dixie Road, right? Yeah, which was great. But that man just went into his new office, which was at Victoria Park Arena. I heard that burnt down. Terrible.
So, yeah.
Now it's the Jim McCurry, which was Dad's right-hand man at the time.
Amazing.
Yeah. So he put himself in an office upstairs in the rink, and he was there. And honest to God, his whole world changed because he wanted things that people had never seen before. Parkettes, and, you know, he bought Chinguacousy Park off the Crawfords. I don't know how much it cost him, but it was, you know, 100 acres, 40 hectares. And then he had this vision that Chinguacousy Park should have everything people could imagine, from, you know, ski hills, curling club, tennis, Terry Fox track, football, baseball. I worked in the animal farm, greenhouse. My brother worked in there. But his whole thing was this. And it wasn't just the arenas and all these things that he put together in the park. He wanted parkettes. So people could leisurely walk their kids and be in a parkette, freedom, or, you know, away from cars and everything else. And that was his thing. Like, he was just like, he was on fire. Because I don't think the guy stopped for 40 years. He just like go, because he just wanted leisure for everyone. And when he created this thing called the CARE program, which was, if you could not afford to be in programs, you called the CARE program in the city hall, and he would make sure your family got into whatever the kids wanted to take. That's big stuff.
That's cool. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Again, that's that huge heart that he had.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like that, but this drive and strength, where he could make decisions and had a vision and just obviously, again, executed it so well. Our city is different because of that, but had this huge heart for those that the
Only
outcasts.
he didn't show it.
Yeah.
And I could see it. Like it was, and I would smile. Like when he got presented the plaque, I think it was the Canada Day celebrations one year that I ran. And they gave him a plaque that said the Donald M. Gordon Chinguacousy Park. Of course, he's up there, like, you know. But inside, I could tell what's going on, even in his eyes. He was getting watery and he wanted to get off the stage, right? There's no way he's going to show that.
Nice.
Never, right?
Yeah.
Big man.
Yeah. That's, you know, I think it's a good lesson for all of us that sometimes, in fact, not sometimes, there's always more to somebody than meets the eye. And we don't always know everything about somebody. And so the Professor's Lake was another, just an amazing example of the way your dad fought to have this city the way it is today. Tell us that story, if you would, because that's an incredible.
Well, back just a bit for that. Yeah. It was called the Chinguacousy Quarries at the time, and we used to, like, you know, skip school. Yeah, me, from Chinguacousy Secondary, and dive off these cliffs.
Wow.
Well, of course, my dad goes over and goes, "That's fantastic, this lake." So he's going to build himself a lake, and he wants all these pathways around it, and he wants to make some houses maybe. But his big thing was, I want a facility, I want a beach, because there's no beach in Brampton unless you want to go to Heart Lake, but that's no hell. Right? So he would have these meetings in his office, and he would call the developers in. And they'd say, okay, we'll give you X amount of dollars. We're going to do houses, and we might be able to do a path. Might? And that would be Dad. Like, huh? So he says, well, I'll tell you what we're going to do. You're going to build the houses. You're going to put in the pathways. But you're also going to make me a facility. I want a beach. I want sand. I want a slide. You know, all this kind of stuff. And they said, absolutely not. He said, well, then get the hell out of my office. And that was Dad. Yeah. Right? Like, I mean, you're not going to tell him what's not going to happen. Yeah. So they would grovel for a couple of days. And then his secretary would say to Dad, you know, like, there's so-and-so developers here. He says, of course there is, right? And in they'd come and he'd get his way. So they built the facility and they got bringing the nice sand and all this crap. And there was a platform out so people could swim to it. And the pathway actually goes almost 3/4 around Professor's Lake, but then there was some areas that were hilly. Yeah. So they left it just with the bigger houses, right? Okay. But it blended well with people, with kids, with pathways, and somewhere to go when it's hot. Not everybody, you know, can afford whatever, get in their car and drive up to Wasaga Beach, $20 for gas and this and that. Yeah. Now you have Professor's Lake, you got in for $1. Yeah. Right? And then even that, people would be like, that's really cheap. Yeah, well, that's him. Yeah. You know, because he doesn't want to have to charge people. He wants people to enjoy Brampton. They live there. Yeah. Who thinks like that? Yeah, no. You know? No, he... one of a kind.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And Any sense as you would have been seeing this happening and heard about it from him as you were growing up, where did this vision come from? Where did this desire to make the city so beautiful beyond housing and the normal stuff? You're gonna have schools, you're gonna have church, you're gonna have houses, but the
Right.
parklands and the trails, like these are Chinguacousy Park and Professor's Lake and the trail systems that we have, like it transforms our city.
Well,
And
look what he did
I'm
with
so
Gage
blessed to live
Park.
here. But where did this all come from your dad? What was that? Gage Park.
Gage Park.
Oh, like
That was another classic.
was that another one of your
because-
dad's?
Yeah, but he he brought it up to council. He said, "All right, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna put in this big outdoor rink and refrigeration underneath and the whole bit."
Really?
And they said, "No, you're not." "Oh, aren't I? Are you running Parks and Rec or am I running Parks and Rec? Because I'm having this." And their big thing was it was a memorial park, right? Well, Dad's like, "Well, what's more fitting than have a skating rink so people can actually see what happened years ago?" Well, that's one of the number one skating rinks in Canada outdoors.
Yeah.
But it was another one of those things. His vision said, this has to happen.
Amazing.
Because if you went public skating in any of his, what at the time, 15 arenas that he put all through the city, you paid on a Friday night, whatever it was, $75 to skate, rent your skates. He wanted this, once again, leisure for everyone.
Wow.
So he would hire staff, they'd have a Zamboni and they'd clean the ice and have music. And then you had that, what'd you call that thing in the middle?
The gazebo. Yeah.
And he'd have bands and stuff or whatever, out of nowhere, right?
Yeah. No, it's still used for that. I mean,
It is.
post-COVID,
Yeah.
we'll get there again, but yeah.
But you know what I think, Jamie? I think he got that idea because when his office moved from, say, I think he was in Balmoral for a while and then Victoria Park first. Then he was in that old civic center where the city center is, and he put an outdoor rink out there too. I don't know if you know that.
No.
It's very small.
Yeah.
But I used to go there on New Year's Eve, and across the street was the Spateris, and Ray, I had a little crush on him at the time, weird, eh? And he would play his drums with his band, and life was great.
Yeah.
And then from that, when Dad moved into the big city hall, then, well, everything started to unfold.
Yeah.
He was in control.
Yeah.
And there was no way you were going to tell him you can't have something, or that if you have 4 kids, you can't ski, or you can't. No. Yes, you can. You know, which was, I mean, I'm very proud of him.
Oh, yeah. Well, we all are, but you as his daughter for sure, right? Even more so, but no, and grateful. And that's why I think this is a story that is really, I'm so glad that we're sharing it today. And for many people, most people won't know all this, but it's part of the history of our city. And then you never know who's going to hear this and say, you know what? Yeah, I got a vision that I want to hold on to and execute on as well. And it can happen because these are pretty wild things to have a park that size of Chinguacousy Park, to have a park with a lake and a beach in the middle of a city our size, a downtown park that has a skating trail around it. Like those are big things.
I know, but I'm going to tell you, Jamie, he'd be very upset right now to see Chinguacousy Park with the big buildings because it's all about the dollar and you want to rent a facility in these.
Yeah.
That was not his vision. It's not about money.
Yeah.
It was about enjoying a park. You park on the outskirts. And that's what we did at the time. There was no mini golf parking lot because Dad said no. And it was funny, the baseball organization would say, we have to park in the west lot and walk with our equipment. Aren't you playing a sport? So what's your problem? Carry it. Because there's no way. You got kids in the middle of the park running around on their bikes and everything. I don't want a parking lot in the middle of it, which they turned around and did.
Yeah.
You know, it does change with people,
for sure. You know, and that's the reality too. But what I'm really interested in hearing about your dad is this heart that he had for leisure for everyone.
Yeah.
Not just the those who are financially able, so to speak, or the upper class, but for all people. And I think that's part of what makes Brampton so unique, that there is a place for everyone
from the ground
here.
up, not the rich down.
Yeah.
He really did.
Yeah.
And he saw it. I didn't even see that kind of stuff until I was older.
Yeah. So where did that come from? What, like, any sense of, was there something in his growing up, in his history, that just gave him, obviously a creative visionary. God had blessed him with this incredible vision.
Yeah.
But again, at the heart of it, for the people, all people, to be able to have leisure. That's a theme, like in all of these situations that he fought for. Like, any sense of where that came from? That's really amazing.
My father, when he was younger, went through a lot of stuff himself, motorcycle accidents and everything, and he was always on streets. and things were always happening. He saw a lot of his friends die.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you go through that and you go into the Navy at 16 and you come out of that, he wants to protect all of a sudden.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and he had this big, I don't want anybody to get hurt. He hated that, you know? And so he was just creating what he thought everybody wanted. Whether he asked them or not, he knew that if he did it, it'd be very popular. Where does he get that? I have no idea. That guy was a mystery to me half the time, you know, but he just had it inside him. Now, and I don't know, Donnie and I would kind of look at him like, what? Yeah. What are you doing now? You know? But here's the thing about his vision too. Everybody on his team had to follow suit because if you got called into his office, it was never good. And they would get very, very upset that he had to go to Don Gordon's office because it would not be good. Because he expected you to follow suit. You're only as good as your weakest link, he would say. And so he did this to people, and I saw him fire people because they just weren't keeping up to it. You know, and it was mind-boggling, you know, for me, because at the time too, I was working towards, you know, becoming a supervisor in the city of Brampton. I was working at, where was I working? Supplies and service first, then accounting. Okay. And then the city of Brampton. But I started when I was 12 in the snack bar at the band shell, which is funny, right? Nice. And that was another one of his things, right? Let's put a band shell and have free concerts Tuesday night. Where's that coming from? Because nobody did that. No. You know, it was bizarre, but that's just who he was. And I wish I had said, what's that all about, dude? You know, but I didn't. I just thought, wow, like I was in awe on him at the end of his life at the city, you know, because he decided at 64 he's going to cut out early. It's like,
cut out early at 64.
A year. Okay. Yeah. Meanwhile, he's doing 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. Right. Yeah. And he expected that from all his staff too.
Yeah. Well, his passion for his vision was so intense.
You didn't screw with that.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Yeah. And you know, one of the things that I'm hearing too, Pam, is like sometimes when you have an idea, especially if you're a visionary, it doesn't make sense to everyone else. But he still had the courage and the confidence to move it forward, even when people were saying, "Are you kidding?" And he's like, "No, I'm not kidding."
Including me.
Yeah, well, right. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Hey, so let's talk about your mom because
oh my God.
You know, you're obviously your dad was more in the public and you know and fair enough and he did that so well, but they were a team, right? And they were a team.
Totally.
And talk a bit about your mom and the role that she played in who your dad was and what he was enabled to do.
My dad, he was in awe of my mother for 55 years. She was everything. Sliced bread, all of it. She was everything. And the truth is, my dad could never have done what he did, as long hours as he did, without her being okay with it. You know, he'd walk into the city with a nice suit and everything's pressed and everything else. Somebody's doing that behind the scenes. Somebody's creating everything. He would come home at 6 o'clock for a half an hour for dinner. And she'd be working 2 jobs as well. He didn't want her working, but she said, you know, go to hell. So she started working. But, you know, the household stuff was all her, the meals, his allowance, everything was him. So he could be free to run the city. He would never have been, he couldn't have been that man without her. He just couldn't have. Because there's too many things, you know, behind. And anybody who's working a very, you know, powerful job knows that somebody's usually behind it, making sure it's happening for you. Yeah. Because you can't get up at 7 and have breakfast and a coffee because you're doing it. He didn't even know how to boil water, to be honest. It's true, right? I mean, she was incredible with him. She also could control him. Yeah. You know, at home, he'd start his crap, and she's like, "You're not at work, so try again." Yeah. Which was funny. I used to laugh all the time, right? And be like, "Shut up, Pam." It's just like, well, you know, you don't get away with it here, buddy boy. Yeah. But she would rule the roost.
Yeah, so she was pretty tough too. That
she was amazing.
Very strong.
Amazing.
Yeah,
and a lovely woman. I mean, if you met her, you fell in love with her.
Yeah,
you know, she had a big, big heart, and I think that kind of wore on him too. That she was so passionate about so many things, especially her kids. Right, we could go to any sport because they didn't have that when they were younger. So Mom made sure if we wanted to, you know, play hockey, or I wanted hockey and figure skating and all this. and my brother too. And it was all possible. They didn't have the money at that time, but she made every cent work for her. And if it was just up to dad and there was no mom, he would have been broken and standing in his gibbies in the Navy again because it was her that was doing it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And he was so proud. They'd go to functions and stuff for the city. And he's like, meet my wife, Rita. You know, she was the world to him. Yeah, but she was stern with him. She had to be, because he was just a little guy that was full of fire.
Okay.
You know, but I know I give her all the credit in the world.
Yeah.
I really do.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
and she was funny too.
Yeah.
There's nothing better than, I was telling you about bacon and eggs. There's nothing better than showing up at 11:45 and they're singing in the kitchen, doing dishes and cooking. And you're like, after all these years, you feel like this.
Yeah.
You know, and they're having fun. They're laughing and carrying on. And we used to play cards, Donnie and I, with them, euchre. Saturday night at 6 before Donnie and I would take off. Well, he'd go and read. I'd go to a bar, obviously. And we would play cards. And they would be partners in euchre, and Donnie and I.
Nice.
And I would laugh my head off because she would go alone all the time. And
Really?
he'd say, what am I, a dog? She'd shut up. You don't have the cards and you don't know how to play. And that would be the end of it, right? It was so funny. I laughed at him. God.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
They had a beautiful relationship. And you know, and how did that strengthen him for what he did the hard work, the tough decisions? It was
his strength.
Like that would be, eh? Yeah.
She would ask him to do things around the house. And this is a great thing nobody knows about. My dad put up shelves in the garage with 4-inch nails and duct tape. Of course, I come over. I'm like, what the hell is that? He's like, well, what? She wanted shelves. Well, you don't use duct tape on wood. He had no idea, right? He could run the city, but he couldn't make a sandwich, right? So I used to play with him on that. I thought it was great. You know, it's just, he just didn't get it.
Yeah.
Right? But there she was, making sure it was all working out.
Yeah.
You know, and she would hire the contractors to do something or whatever. Not him. He'd hire somebody wrong that drinks beer. You know, he wasn't allowed to drink either. She said no. So that was pretty cool. Yeah. And he would listen. Yeah. When Donnie was born, she said, yeah, choose your alcohol or your family. He quit right away.
Wow.
Yeah. That's how much he loved her.
Yeah. That's cool.
It was an amazing relationship to watch, for sure.
Yeah. Well, it only feels right to talk about both your mom and your dad as we have this conversation.
His success is hers and hers is his.
Right? Yeah.
Goes both ways.
Yeah. That's awesome.
For sure.
That's awesome. So for you, Pam, how have you been impacted by your parents as we think about their life and who they were and what they did? My sense is there's big pieces of both of them in you, which is the case for most of us.
The coolest thing.
Right? So how have you been impacted by your parents?
I feel I couldn't be any more blessed than having Dawn and Rita as my parents. They were, if I needed to talk about something and it bothered me, my dad would come outside and he'd take care of me with about 6 words. And, you know, people like to, you know, matter on for an hour about something when you have a problem. Dad was a man of very few words. I'd become a person with very few words because you don't need, I want Cole's notes about everything. You know, people are talking, like, there's only so many hours in the day, get to the point, right? But people used to call me his clone. We were the same height, same weight, blonde hair, green eyes, hazel eyes. And there was so much of, I'm very much like dad, but the older I get, I'm very much like mom, you know, and the caring and the, you know, the need to make people happy and to see that don't stay in the bad lane. There's something good in everything you do, even though you know, maybe something happens to you, move on. And my dad and mom are big on that. It's like, why are you crying about that? That was yesterday and it doesn't even exist. So they were constantly in that mind frame to, you know, to instill in Donnie and I, my brother, something good comes out of everything, whether it's negative or positive. So look for it. That's the silver lining. Where do you get that from people? And they instilled that kind of stuff with very little words all the time, but that's what you end up learning. And the way he was with people in Brampton, the visionary, the, you know, making sure everybody has everything they want in Brampton became something that was extremely important to me because of my father.
Yeah.
Well, and mother too. But I mean, I had that same thing. I grew up with that.
Yeah.
right? So when I started running Chinguacousy Park, it was a dream come true because it was my dad's park. I remember they said to him, "We're not going to name the park after you. We'll give you an arena." He says, "Oh, go to hell. I want the park."
Seriously.
And that's the end of it, right?
Seriously.
And sure shit, he got the park, right? And I would giggle. As you know, his service was in the curling club.
I remember that, yeah.
Well, you better. You did it, right? Jesus. Actually, you did both of them, which was incredible, Jamie. Thank you so much for that.
Honor, privilege. I think about them both often, Pam, and I continue to be inspired by
well,
them both. Yeah.
I asked the director at the time, I said, "Look, I want to have his service in the curling club." They said, "Absolutely not. It's illegal." Really? So I called Susan Fennell, and she said, "Absolutely." Because that's his park. And it was his park since 1995, right? He died in 2008. And nothing was more fitting than that place. Because that's where his whole, although he had a lot of things in the city, Chinguacousy Park was a big deal. Who names their boat Chinguacousy?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, what does that tell you? You don't need an explanation. It's very clear, you know? And that's the nice thing about both of them. You didn't need a lot. You just had to pay attention.
Yeah.
You know?
For
Dad
sure.
was big on those words. Pay attention, kid. You know, he wanted me to be a brain like my brother. And it's just like, you know, Dad, I'm just going to be you. Because, you know, you know what I really learned a lot, Jamie, from both of them. And I think this is interesting. When I started running the ski hill too, I became the director. And I realized that for me, all the different learning styles, you can read it, you can hear it, or you can do it. So no matter when I did training in the park for special events or the ski hill, I encompassed all three of them, right? Because I'm a visual, right? I need to do it, and then I can do it, okay? But if you ask me to read it in a textbook, don't have a clue. That's Donnie. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So on Monday nights, I used to have training for all the staff. I'd have 30 ski and snowboard instructors. And they all got a manual. And they all heard me. And I had flip charts and the whole bit. But half the room wanted me to show them. They became extremely good at what they did because I actually took care of those three learning styles.
Nice.
Because if you gave me a book, well, that's a joke. I've never read one. I don't care to. I don't learn this way. And Dad was a doer too.
Nice. Yeah.
He would go, he said to me, "What's marketing?" I said, "I don't know. What is it?" He said, "Ask the people what they want and give it to them." I said, "You don't ask anybody." He says, "Yeah, that's because I'm good at it." I was like, "Oh, okay." Yeah. But you know what? I'm him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Lori Bloom said to me, my boss, he said, "Why are you bringing elephants into nitty gritty?" I said, "Because it's going to work." He goes, "How do you know?" I asked people. Did I? No, I really didn't. But the point is, who the hell, you know, here we go again, right? Families, can they go to the zoo and pay for 3 kids to get in? Why don't I bring one here? Open up the ponds with the gabion rocks, let the elephants swim, have rides, take photos. And their big thing for me, and I remember Mark Neeb, the commissioner after my dad left, he said to me, "All right, here's all these. You're going to run Chinguacousy Park, but let me tell you this. When you run Canada Day, we'll give you $100,000, but you have to put it back." I'm like, "Oh, good, great." Because nobody else had to do that, but it was time. So I'd bring in rides and pay for parking to make up. I mean, the elephant used to make $6,000 on rides alone.
Wow.
I paid $3,000 for Angus, the largest trained elephant in captivity.
Yeah.
You know, and Steve Preston was so funny. He said to me at Canada, he goes, "There's rides in the parking lot." And I said, "I know. What's wrong with that? I have to make the money back." And he says, "Well, I'll tell you this right now. If it works, great. If it doesn't, I knew nothing about it." I went, "Way to go, Steve. A good one." Jesus. But I mean, there I was left to my own devices to think, how can I make back this money? I also used to put together like gold, silver, platinum volunteer things, not volunteer, fundraising and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I got Bell Canada one year to pay for the $40,000 fireworks.
Wow.
So the first year I had to do this $100,000, of course, I went in cocky to the city. Went, "Oh, look at me! I've paid it back, and I got $70,000 for next year."
Nice.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because that was a challenge. Oh, you say I got to put it back. Oh, I'll put it back, but I'll put it back and make more. Because to me, that's what Dad would have done too, right? Oh, that's a joke, right? You watch what I do.
That's great.
You know?
It doesn't.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't take long to see your dad and your mom in you, Pam. That's so awesome.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, and we all. That's one of the blessings that we. There's pieces of our parents that become a part of who we are, and their legacy continues.
I got to say this though. You know my brother Donnie.
Yeah.
And he was extremely close to my mother. They're clones,
Nice.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, dark hair, dark eyes, all this kind of stuff. But when my father passed away, it hit my brother in a way that I never saw happen before. He said to me afterwards when he saw him in viewing, he said, I had no idea I was that close to him.
Mm.
And he was because, Dad and Donnie started writing letters when he went to Africa, and he didn't realize, because Dad was so abrasive like me, like I am like Dad. And my brother's very soft-spoken and all this. And my mother would say to my brother, what is wrong with these two? They're fighting again on the deck. That's who they are, right?
Yeah.
But my brother's very, placid.
For
But
sure,
that really bothered him. And I was shocked.
Yeah.
Not that he didn't
they were
miss
close
my
in it.
dad,
Yeah.
but it really impacted him hard because he
Yeah.
realized a lot of the things he had learned, whether he handled it a different way, was just important.
Yeah,
He missed Dad very much.
Yeah.
Both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, Pam. I think maybe a fitting way to end today. We just want to read a little piece from you. You wrote this beautiful piece really about your mom and your dad. And
I used to write in the paper every year for years.
it's really, I'm just going to read a piece of it as a way to close here. It's so awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, really, really appreciate this. Their unconditional love and values are instilled in us forever. My life, the truth is, I had it good. My mom is the most compassionate, giving person I ever knew. My dad is the funniest man I ever met. And as Donnie and I grew up, we all became best friends. I am by far not over the losses, but I carry their flame and move forward in life to claim my legacy and make them both proud. Absolutely. I believe through all of this that death is a big part of life. I ask of you to love your family and friends and to be kind to all, even if it's just a smile. These things change people's lives. And if you take 5 minutes to talk to someone, you will soon realize that most people are just as hurt, sad, and filled with a sense of emptiness and only need a little understanding. I just love, we've talked so much today, Pam, about the big vision that God blessed your dad with, in our city so different, but just as important are these little pieces that we all can live out. We may not all be Don and Rita Gordons, man, but we can all take a moment to talk to somebody, to offer a smile as we're passing somebody on the street, and this legacy of love and impact continues as we do that. So Pam,
every day,
thanks, man, for living it out and for
Thank
sharing
you.
it today. And I just love to close with a prayer. It just seems like the right way to close
Absolutely.
this time, for sure.
Thank you, Jamie.
Yeah, absolutely. Loving and gracious God, we've been on holy ground here as we've talked about two incredible people, Don and Rita Gordon. Thank you for the many ways that our city is different and better because of them. And we've heard so much in this conversation, from the fulfillment of a vision, having passion for life, a deep care for people, for all people. Just thank you for all of that and more that you've blessed us with as we've talked today. Continue to bless Pam, her brother Donnie, as they continue to live out this legacy of their parents. And we've been inspired by it today, and just appreciate the way you continue to work in and through them. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. Well, thanks again, Pam. And thanks everyone for joining us on the Good News Podcast. Really, really good to have you with us. Hope you've been inspired, encouraged, and maybe even challenged today. And until next time, God bless you. Oh my goodness, that Pam is quite a character. I just love her so much. I hope you do as well. You know what I really appreciated? I really appreciated the creative vision that God blessed her dad Don with, and just the way he executed on that, the passion that he had for it. And as I said earlier, you could just see all those similarities in Pam as she shared her own life as well. A deeper theme too that was riding throughout the conversation was making the best of life, even when it's hard, to see the blessings and do our very best, even when life can be challenging. Don certainly did that, Rita did that, and certainly Pam is doing that today. So grateful for all of it. Thanks for being a part of the Good News Podcast today. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Good News with Jamie Holtum. And if you want to share this with a friend, we'd love to keep growing the Good News Podcast family. But thanks for being a part of this today. Till next time, God bless you.